Remember Mega Evolution? It was first introduced in Pokemon X and Y as a temporary in-battle evolution for Pokemon that made them stronger, could change their abilities, and even change their type. This was really the start of Pokemon adding new Pokemon without actually adding new Pokemon, and even to this day, Mega Pokemon are some of the most beloved forms of Pokemon. And that is all despite them barely even being represented in Pokemon anymore. In Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, they even altered the storyline of the original games, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, to incorporate Mega Evolution and add a few new Mega Pokemon, which really fleshed out the idea and expanded upon the Hoenn experience. Then in Generation 7 with Pokemon Sun and Moon, Mega Pokemon were still around, but were mostly tossed to the side as no new Mega Pokemon were added. Sorry, Flygon. They had pretty much no role in the main story, and then in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, the first main series Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch that were largely remakes of the original Generation 1 Pokemon games, they unexpectedly incorporated Mega Evolution in them. They weren't incorporated in Let's Go as well as they were in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but they were still there, which was a nice surprise. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee released in 2018, and since then we haven't really heard much about Mega Evolution at all. We haven't been able to Mega Evolve in any main series game release since, and at this point it doesn't seem very likely that we will see Mega Evolution return anytime soon. That is just one example of a cool feature added to a Pokemon game that was then later removed, but there are a few other examples of this. Pokemon X and Y also introduced trainer PR videos. I didn't even know these existed until pretty recently, but basically you can star and direct in your own 10-second video clip using assets from Pokemon X and Y. You can make them whatever you want with a surprising amount of options and customization, like these weird ones that I found playing on the screen right now. We haven't had anything quite like this since, and the only other similar thing to it I can think of are the Pokestar Studios in Pokemon Black and White, which also never made a return in a future game, although I don't think anybody out there really liked the Pokestar Studios anyway, so that's okay. Generation 5 did introduce another feature that people liked though, in the Join Avenue. In Black and White 2, south of Nimbasa City, you have this long street that you can fill with shops, cafes, and many other stores, which you can use to buy items or boost your Pokemon's friendship levels. This was one of the closest things we've ever had to Animal Crossing in Pokemon, as although this area was much simpler than Animal Crossing, it had some similar elements to add some more personality to your game, and I'm sure some people watching this video spent a lot of time fleshing out their Join Avenue. Now, going back to what I said at the start of the video about how Mega Evolution was tossed to the side in Pokemon Sun and Moon, it was tossed to the side for Z-moves. Now if you don't know, Z-moves were powered up versions of regular moves that could be used once per battle by giving a Pokemon a specific Z-Crystal held item. The held Z-Crystal usually had to be the same type as the move that the Pokemon went for, however in some instances there were exclusive special Z-Crystals like the Marshadium Z that Marshadow could use to have access to the Z-move Soul Stealing 7-star Strike, and Pikachu, which had 2 signature Z-Crystals because it's Pikachu. I personally preferred Mega Evolution over Z-Crystals and Z-moves when it came to generation-specific battle gimmicks, but this seems to be the new thing in Pokemon since Generation 6, as for now we have Terastallization in Generation 9, but in Generation 8 we had Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing. I'm not going to spend too much on them since they were done so recently, but they sort of combined Mega Evolution and Z-moves in a way by making it so any Pokemon can get really big and have stronger attacks for 3 turns. And in some cases for Pokemon like Kingler, instead of just Dynamaxing getting really big, they would Gigantamax, which is basically the same thing except they would look different. They were cool, but admittedly it was a bit silly how any Pokemon could just Dynamax and get really big like a Sunkern or Magikarp. Now I know I said that battle gimmicks really started with Mega Evolution in Pokemon X and Y, but you could also argue that the 5th generation had some weird battle gimmicks too, one of them being triple battles. Double battles have been a staple in Pokemon ever since their introduction in the 3rd generation games, so it only makes sense to try to add another Pokemon into that mix later on. For triple battles, it was exactly what the name suggests, just 3-on-3 Pokemon battles, with the only difference being that the Pokemon on the outsides of the battle could only attack the Pokemon directly in front of it and the Pokemon in the center, while the Pokemon in the center could attack any Pokemon on the other team. This involves some strategy when it came to placing your Pokemon out in battle, however it was never used in official battle formats, wasn't used too often in the game itself, and although they did return with Pokemon X and Y and were a laggy mess if you sent out 6 Moltres for example, it was removed from Generation 7 as those games were a bit laggier than the Generation 6 games and couldn't handle it, on top of the fact that triple battles just weren't that popular, so not many people missed it when it was taken out of the game. We have yet to see a return of triple battles since the 6th generation of Pokemon, and I'm still hoping out to see their return in Pokemon Black and White 3, so Game Freak, just make it happen. Generation 6 did have some other cool gimmicks though, like O-Powers, which have their own little subplot in the game as well. Basically, an O-Power was a temporary power-up that you could use in-game or to give to a friend over the internet to do things like make them gain more EXP in battle or hatch eggs faster. It was a nice, fun feature, but was ultimately removed from Pokemon in Generation 7 when we saw the release of the Festival Plaza, which also replaced the PSS page. The PSS page was just an interface that people used to access the online features, which made it easy to find your friends online to battle and trade, or even find passerbys, which were random people on the internet that you could ask if they wanted to battle or trade. The Festival Plaza was interesting. It was a little bit more limiting than the PSS page and didn't work nearly as well as the PSS page, as very often if you would go online with a friend and you wanted to send them a battle request, they just wouldn't appear online for you despite them being online anyway. The Festival Plaza did have some similar elements to the Join Avenue though, as you could have some shops scattered around it, but I don't really want to dwell too much on the Festival Plaza as it barely ever even worked. Now, the Festival Plaza did allow you to play some mini-games on it, kind of like what you would see in the game corners that first appeared way back in Pokemon Red and Blue. The iconic Celadon Game Corner was home to Team Rocket's secret base, but also fronted as a casino with a bunch of slot machines. You could play the slot machines, and the coins you won could be redeemed for prizes like rare Pokemon, items, or TMs. The Game Corner returned in every single Pokemon game through Pokemon Platinum, usually appearing in the same town as a department store, as well as in the same town as the 3rd or 4th gym leader. Then in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the Game Corner was replaced with Voltorb Flip, an admittedly fun minigame, although it wasn't gambling. And we have Europe to thanks for that, so thanks Europe for ruining something else for me. This was due to some weird laws regarding gambling in video games in Europe, as technically the Game Corner in Celadon City is gambling, even though it didn't require any actual money, and the only prizes you got were just in the game. But since gambling technically isn't allowed to be in a game rated for kids, they had to remove it. But this is totally okay instead. A rather silly reason for gambling and the game corners as a whole to be removed from Pokemon games, as in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the game corner from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire in Mauville City is closed, and in the Let's Go games you can't even play in the Celadon game corner like you could in the original games. It would be cool if they just replaced the game corners with arcades and had a few minigames like Voltorb Flip, since in my opinion the game corner in Gold and Silver just looks a lot more appealing than this one random guy in a room in the game corner in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But instead, all we have is pain. There was at least one cool feature that returned in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire that was in the originals, which were secret bases. These were small bases you could make in random areas throughout the entire Hoenn region to store any cool plushes or decorations you found. In Emerald version, you could even mix records with a friend and that would put their secret base in your game, with the only restrictions being that you can't have a secret base in the same location as your friend's secret base. You were even able to battle your friend's team controlled by an AI in the game, which was really neat. And in Diamond and Pearl, a similar feature would return with the underground bases, which were mostly the same, just underground. However, outside of the Hoenn and Sinnoh games, secret bases like this haven't returned. I do also want to give a shout out to the Underground, allowing you to dig for fossils, which was really fun. And also play Capture the Flag with your friends on local multiplayer. Now, as far as items, there are some items that have been removed from Pokemon games too. I don't know if this really counts as a removed feature, as items as a whole weren't removed, except for in Let's Go if you count held items being removed. But the most infamous examples of items being removed in later games are the Berserk Genes from the Generation 2 games. This was an item in Pokemon Gold and Silver that when consumed boosted the user's attack by 2 but caused confusion, as basically a self-inflicted swagger. This was very powerful. Even though you had a chance to hit yourself in confusion, it really was still worth it. Then in Generation 3 it was removed, most likely due to the expansion of held items as a whole, as in back in Generation 2 the only good held item was like the leftovers and the Berserk Gene, and double battles allowing you to heal your confusion, as well as abilities like Own Tempo, which prevented the user from being confused, which would just make the Berserk Gene a free Swords Dance when you sent your Pokemon out. Some other items from Generation 2 that were cool were the Apricorn Balls that Kurt would make for you. While these Pokeballs were never technically removed, they are very hard to obtain or downright impossible to obtain in some other Pokemon games, and the ability to just make Pokeballs like this from an Apricorn only appeared in the original Generation 2 games and the remakes Heart Gold and Soul Silver. The Cramomatic in Generation 8 could give you a chance to get one of these elusive Apricorn Balls, but it was random, and I still think it would have been awesome if we could see some sort of NPC like Kurt return in other games that would turn your Apricorns into cool Pokeballs, since some of these Pokeballs just look really nice. That isn't the only Pokeball related thing that was removed though, as Ball Seals from Generation 4 were also removed. They did reappear in the Generation 4 remake games, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, but outside of that they're just gone. If you don't know what they were, basically they allowed you to decorate your Pokeball with various different stickers, so that way when you send out your Pokemon it would have a different effect and animation. This was a fun little cosmetic thing that could be used in contests as well, another feature that was removed from Pokemon but then brought back for only a few future games, and could also be used to have your Pokemon say funny things when you sent them out. As for Pokemon contests, they first appeared in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire as a way to show off one of your Pokemon stats, whether it be beauty, cute, cool, amongst a few others. If you ever wondered why sometimes in some games if you look at your Pokemon's attack stats and it would say cool or something, this is why. You would appear in front of a judge, go for a certain move of a certain contest type, and then be scored on that type, and each move would have a different effect in the contest as compared to when it would be used in battle. It was fun, although really easy and kind of pointless after you did it 1 or 2 times. That being said though, I did still become a contest master in every single Pokemon game, so take that. And those were just some cool removed features from Pokemon games that hopefully some will return soon. Except you, the Festival Plaza. Let me know in the comments down below which your favorite removed feature was, and also let me know of any other removed features we didn't talk about in this video, and while you're at it, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Pokemon videos. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.